Happy New Year. I wish everybody the best for 2014. I've not been as active on the VC as I wanted to be in the last few weeks. I've been doing some writing, so all my spare time's been taken up with that. But I had to respond to the challenge, or the thread started out by Anders in Stockholm, which is music that moves me. And I thought it was great, and I loved Mark's response, and I also really like Ben Costello's. And I understand there's some others I haven't seen yet, so I'm going to be hunting those down soon as well. Great idea. So here we go. Starting off with John Coltrane's Live at Birdland, and this has got a kind of double hit really on this one, because there's two tracks on here that absolutely kill me really. The first of them is Afro Blue, which is Coltrane's version of the Mongo Santa Maria tune, and basically this was kind of, I remember hearing this for the first time when I was probably, I guess, kind of early teenager and so forth, and the tension that builds on this tune is unbelievable. Coltrane makes a kind of slight introduction and then kind of backs out and allows the rhythm section to just kind of stoke it up for him to enter, and the kind of tension that builds between McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones and Jimmy Garrison is just unbelievable on this track before Coltrane comes back in. And of course the other thing on here is also the version of Alabama, which was a beautiful ballad, or almost like a dirge actually, that Coltrane wrote for the 4 children that were killed in a Baptist church by the Ku Klux Klan. Kind of very sad, but also very powerful, very angry, kind of angry and beautiful at the same time, kind of song on here as well. And I think John Coltrane 68, I haven't seen his video yet, but John Coltrane 68 played a version of this from the YouTube video, which is pretty amazing as well. So that's Coltrane's Live at Birdland for 2 reasons really. And just, although I'm not including this as one of my 10, I was going to pick a Ornette Coleman ballad as well, and Anders nailed it really with his post, and the track Broken Shadows of this is just wonderful. So I'm just with you with that one, Anders. Next up, playing basically an Ridolfi track, his version of Glad to Be Unhappy, which is a flute feature, and this is from a kind of compilation, but this is his band with Freddie Hubbard and Jackie Byard and so forth. And there's 2 reasons behind this really. I mean, it's a beautiful song, but also it reminds me of a very close friend of mine called Paul Evans, who's a wonderful poet and writer, and Paul and I kind of shared a flat together in Brighton for a long time, and he was great. Both of us love music and love jazz, so I always think of Paul when I hear this track as well. Beautiful song. Eric Dolphy's fantastic kind of playing on here. This is a kind of weird version. It's a double album. I've only got one of the 2 albums somehow or other, but I've got the right one here with Glad to Be Unhappy. Next up on the jazz front, going to pick up, again I picked dozens of Miles Davis songs, but I've decided to go for He Loved Him Madly, which is off Get Up With It, which was a kind of, it was actually a proper release, but it was kind of like a compilation of putting together stuff over different periods of time. And this, He Loved Him Madly was the composition that Miles wrote for Duke Ellington when he died. And I remember playing this the night after I heard that Miles had died. And I remember it was when my father called me and told me that Miles had died. So I can think of my father, I can think of Miles, and I can think of Duke when I hear this track. Amazing piece. I mean, it's a 30-minute whole side composition, very, very, very minimal, kind of almost unlike anything else that Miles ever wrote, I think, and it was improvised pretty much in the studio by all accounts. Pete Cozy, who was in the band at the time, actually couldn't think of anything to play and laid out on this track. He arrived late and couldn't think of anything, and just wanted to hear it. He thought it was so beautiful, so didn't play any guitar, just played a few percussion effects, I think, on it. But it's a very beautiful track. A big influence on Brian Eno, if I remember rightly, this particular track as well. And it is almost like an ambient piece. Very, very beautiful, very peaceful. Kind of sad, but not miserable sad. There's a kind of real kind of grace to it as well. So that's good. That's off Get Up With It from Miles Davis. Next up, Robert Wyatt's always been a hugely important kind of artist for me. Right from when he was in Soft Machine. I feel like I've kind of grown up with Robert really, because I was a big fan of Soft Machine when I was at school, and I love all his solo work as well. And his compositions are great, but weirdly, I'm going to pick actually his version of Chic's "At Last I Am Free," which came out as a 7-inch single on. I think it's on a couple of CD collections as well. On Rough Trade, the Chic song's a beautiful song anyway, and Rob does an amazing kind of version of it. Kind of unlikely kind of cover for him to choose, really, I think, in a way. But he just sings it beautifully, and the song is a classic, of course, and it's kind of he just adds something to it, which just makes it wonderful. So that's Robert Wyatt's "The Last I'm Free." Next up, one of the kind of great songs of I'm going to pick these up and put them in my lap so I don't disappear all the time. One of the great voices of soul music, really, Ronnie Isley, and I picked "Footsteps in the Dark" from Go For Your Guns, which is one of their mid-70s albums on T-Neck, their own label. "Footsteps in the Dark" is huge. I mean, it's been sampled dozens of times. People have made new versions of it and so forth. But I think the original is just unbeatable, really. And my guess is a lot of babies have been made to this music, actually, over the years, probably particularly in the mid-70s, I think. So a lot of people walking around probably have this playing in the background at some point of their lives. Next up, we've had both Mark and Ben both chose John Martin songs, and I'm going to pick another one, really, which is "So Much in Love With You," which came from Inside Out, which was the album that followed on from Solid Air. This really just reminds me of somebody who was very, very special to me for a very long time in my life, and in fact the whole of our relationships seem to have John Martin as the kind of soundtrack to it. So I mean, you know, he was a classic emotional singer and very emotional person, and I think almost kind of sometimes he used to overwhelm him, and a lot of the kind of aggression and kind of messing about, I think, was almost because he had so much inside of himself that he could barely control it sometimes. Anyway, so it's John Martin's Inside Out, very important to me. I mean, kind of listened to John Martin again probably since I was a teenager. Wonderful stuff. Next up, I'm going to pick a couple of classical things, really, and listen to a lot of Mahler in my life, and find a kind of, again, a really interesting emotional kind of landscape in Mahler. Quite complex, hard to pin down kind of emotions. It's not straightforward kind of happy, sad stuff, or kind of, it's much more interesting than that. So I could have picked any of Mahler's symphonies, really, but I've gone for his ninth, and this is the first version I bought of it. I've got other ones as well, but this is the version conducted by Bernard Haitink with the Concerto Bar Orchestra. And I mean, the first movement of this is just amazing, really. I mean, if you're familiar with it, you know what I mean, I think, but it's kind of, there's so much going on and so many changes of mood, and it's so dense. It's a very long movement. It's about 25 minutes long. All kinds of stuff happening in it, and I always hear something and feel something that I've never felt before when I listen to it. That's Mahler's ninth, and that's the Bernard Haitink version. Now Schoenberg, somebody who you don't normally kind of associate with I guess, maybe wrongly, with a more kind of intellectual kind of music, but I've mentioned this in another post I did earlier on, but Verklaternacht, which is translated as Transfigured Night, always gets me, and there's something about it which is kind of incredibly powerful, and I don't know what it is, but it's always something that I find really moving. It's one of his earlier pieces, although he rewrote it for a string orchestra later on in his career. And I think if you can go on to, well, you're obviously on YouTube as you're watching this, but I mean, there's a fantastic little clip of a Godard film, Jean-Luc Godard film, with who uses a bit of a Verklaternacht in the background, and it's just great, just perfect, actually. So that's Schoenberg's Verklaternacht. All the versions of it are great, actually. I mean, all the versions and all the there's two versions. There's a string sextet and there's a string orchestra, but basically I haven't heard a bad performance of this, actually. It's a wonderful piece of music. Okay. Next up, and it's a bit of an odd one. I mean, Neil Young is somebody else, I guess, who's who's kind of been with me for a very long time in my life, and reminds me of another very special person in my life. I picked the weirdest, probably the weirdest Neil Young album. I picked the track "Don't Be Denied" from Time Fades Away. Now, this is the album that I don't think Neil likes himself very much at all, actually. It's never been reissued on CD. But there's something about the opening of "Don't Be Denied" which is incredibly powerful. There's a kind of guitar riff at the beginning of it, which is just kind of always just grabs my attention and always makes me kind of feel something. So this is, "Don't Be Denied" off Time Fades Away. It was one of the Ditch trilogy, so-called Ditch trilogy, with On the Beach and Tonight's the Night. I've always really liked this record, even though some of the playing is slightly shabby, to put it mildly, on here. The songs are great, and "Don't Be Denied" is an amazing kind of almost semi-autobiographical kind of song, but always makes my hair stand on end when the first few bars of it kick off. Now, finally, if I can find it, Tango. I mean, a kind of one of my favourite groups. Somebody described them as being the kind of one of the least pretentious bands there are. Getting weird kinds of glare going on here. It's already got a reflected colour. It looks quite nice, actually. There's something about the simplicity of their songs, and there's a kind of emotional intelligence behind this band, I think. They feel like grown-ups writing songs rather than people pretend to be kids writing songs. And this is, I mean, I could have chosen dozens of their songs, but actually my current favourite is the last track off their most recent album, which is called Fade, and it's the track "Before We Run." And very beautiful. Feels like there's a little bit of a kind of Jim O'Rourke kind of influence on this track as well. And the album's produced by John McIntyre from Tortoise. But it's a beautiful track, lovely strings, nice horn arrangement. Very beautiful. I mean, they're kind of special to me, Tango, and they're kind of recurrent, I guess. And my current favourite is "Before We Run," which is kind of attaching itself to a person at the moment as well. Anyway, that's my lot. That's my 10. Just a quick shout out to Roger Coleman as well. I mean, I asked Roger on his blog to recommend some early Guided by Voices material. He's done an amazing kind of 2-part post on the VC about it, which was so thank you, Roger. And yeah, best wishes to everybody. Look forward to seeing the videos and leave a comment. Take care. Bye.